Hey guys, thanks for having us down. Kevin Eastman down here in Houston. We're having an absolute blast. Thanks for you guys coming out. And this is exciting. This is cool. Thank you. Wow!
So I understand you have a presentation to watch?
Yeah, what I like to do for these events, I like to start off with a little presentation. I'll show you a little bit of turtle history, maybe some secrets, things we didn't know about, and then we'll do some questions and answers afterwards, if that's cool. So with that, you guys recognize this piece here? Can you believe that was 31 years ago?
Dang.
Holy smokes, let me adjust my depends and we'll keep going here. You know, it's amazing to me. It's like, I always like to say that, you know, I never imagined that it would work. Peter and I never imagined it would work and sell as a comic book in the first place. The fact that we're here 30 years later, 31 years later now, and still talking about turtles is absolutely mind-blowing, amazing, and it's all your fault. Every one of you fans that have been buying those turtle toys and buying those comics, thank you and thank you and thank you and all thank you so much. Sincerely, thanks. You can't hear me? Is that too loud? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I'm usually yelling. This, you guys know who Jack Kirby is? You heard of Jack Kirby? Co-created most of the Marvel Universe. When I was growing up, I was the hugest Jack Kirby fan in the world, so was Peter Laird. He was the guy that inspired me to draw. He was the guy that when I was reading the Community comics and all the stuff he was doing, and I proudly announced to my parents that I was going to be a cartoonist for the rest of my life, and they immediately thought, oh my goodness, he's never going to move out of the basement. But when I first met Pete, he had this Jack Kirby piece hanging on his wall. I'd never seen a Jack Kirby original before, and I pretty much almost passed out. And Pete later gave it to me, but this is really one of our bonding moments back in the day. This is the house that the Turtles were created in. Peter and his wife had this place in Dover, New Hampshire. They had a room, a spare room available, so I rented that, and Peter and I formed Mirage Studios. And we came up with the name Mirage Studios because it was a mirage. We didn't have a studio, it was our living room, which is, this is it. This is the chair that the Turtles were actually created in. The first drawing was done in that chair. I bought it at a yard sale and had a lap board. And the first turtle drawing was done because Pete used to watch some of the worst TV shows, in my opinion. He'd watch T.J. Hooker, the A-Team, and all these shows, and I felt it was my job to annoy him as much as possible while he was watching his favorite show. And I was a huge fan of Bruce Lee, and I thought one night, if Bruce Lee was an animal, what would be the silliest animal he'd be? Turtle. And so I did this doodle, and I said, this is going to be the next big thing. Ha ha ha. To get the reaction I wanted, Pete laughed, and he did this drawing, changed a few things, and you know, we both laughed some more. Of course, studio one-upmanship, I had to top his drawing. So I did this sketch of 4 turtles, each with different weapons in this pose. I did it in pencil. And I put this comic book logo, Ninja Turtles, and when Pete inked it in, he added Teenage Mutant to the title. And literally the next morning, this was done in November of 1983, the next morning we get up, and because we didn't have any distracting pain work going on, we said, why don't we come up with a story that tells how the Turtles got to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and we'll self-publish it. And that was in 1983, the first issue came out in May of 1984. One of the most asked questions is, where do the names come from? When you're working with an idea as absurd or silly as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you know, traditional Asian names, which would have been appropriate, wasn't silly enough. You know, Doug, Bob, Steve, Bill, not silly enough. And I was a huge fan of art history. In fact, this mural was done in 1980 when I graduated high school, and it was my tribute to Leonardo da Vinci. So I just blurted out to Pete. I said, "How about Leonardo, Michelangelo, and Raphael?" And he laughed appropriately. We just like, oh my goodness, that's it. And I always like to say that Donatello was almost named Bernini because I really liked, we had an argument because I liked Bernini as a sculptor better, and Pete was like, well, how about another one with an O on the end? And so we did a coin toss and Donatello won. So I had a $500 income tax return. We cleaned out all $200 from Pete's bank account, and I borrowed $1,000 from my uncle. And we had just enough money to print 3,000 copies of the first issue. And we were so sure that we wouldn't sell any copies of them when we brought them home from the printer, and this is still in Dover, New Hampshire, we actually started making furniture out of them. We had a coffee table, we had some end tables, and this is there was a stack of comics sitting in the corner of our studio. This was the official premiere of the Turtles. little tiny comic book show, more like a comic book flea market in Portsmouth, May 5th, 1984 is when the Turtles made their world premiere. We on purpose invited lots of family there, so it looked like we'd have people around our table, giving out free copies of the book. But it was fun that we did, there we are, oh my God, look at that. It was like 50 pounds ago, and I think I'm still trying to grow the mustache. It just never really came in. We started working on issue 2, and I could now afford a desk. And I like to bring up issue 2 because when we did the first issue, my summer job was cooking lobsters. We put out the first issue, I went back that summer and cooked lobsters. And in January of 1985, we completed the second issue. This was after distributors kept calling and saying, when are you going to do a second issue of the Turtles? And we were like, we didn't think the first one would sell. We never thought about doing a second one. But when we got the orders into the second issue, it was 15,000 copies, and Pete, filled out his Casio calculator, and we figured out that we'd make about $2,000 each in profit after we paid all the bills on the second issue. And he said, if we do 6 of these a year, we can eat all the macaroni and cheese we want, we can pay our rent, and we can draw comic books for a living. So starting Turtles issue 2 in 1985, I was drawing comic books full time, and that was really when the dream came true for both of us, drawing comics for a living. Here's Pete, circa 1985, standing in front of stacks of Turtles number 2. Still working on the mustache. This is our first year at Comic-Con. You guys ever been out to San Diego Comic-Con? It's crazy. Houston is much more fun, trust me. That's a madhouse out there. When we did Comic-Con, it was that year they were hoping for 10,000 attendees. We stayed in the hotel, the Hotel San Diego. The roaches would carry up the bags for a year and stuff. It was terrible. The whole place is now, I think last year was 200,000 people or something. We finally got to meet the man. That's Jack Kirby. And that was one of those moments where, Pete and I, we both walk up and he's saying these squeaky voices, Mr. Kirby, we're your biggest fans. And he was such an awesome and incredible gentleman and such a big inspiration. We get to visit him many times over the years, and he's a real hero, and it's fantastic. You guys ever seen this cover before? Yay, Casey Jones. This was, April O'Neil was the first human character brought into the Turtles universe in issue number 2. And around this time, they had these 4-issue micro-series comics, and Pete and I said, well, let's parody that, and we'll just do a 1-issue, featuring each of the individual Turtles. And I had this idea that I wanted to have this vigilante character that was actually crazier than Raphael, and maybe have Raphael look a little bit inward and discover himself a little bit more. But Casey evolved out of, there was so many vigilante stories that had this really horrific backstory, their whole town was blown up or something horrific happened, so they became vigilantes. And I just wanted a super guy that became a vigilante because he watched too much bad TV. So Casey used to watch 3 TVs at a time and do that. There's some of the pages, some of the original pages that actually ended up being recreated in the movie years later. But I love Casey Jones. Yes. This is the first color cover of the Turtles. This was done for Turtles issue 5. A couple things significant about this piece is, when Pete and I were writing and drawing these comic books, we wrote the stories for ourselves, so we could do anything we wanted to. We had no boss, we had no anything. And so I was a huge fan. We were both huge fans of Star Wars, so we took the Turtles in outer space to discover the origin of the U's. So this is my chance to do my homage to George Lucas. So this is the cantina scene with the Turtles right in the middle, which was a blast. And it's the first time we showed their color bandanas, and I painted them all red because we knew who they were. And so they, for all the early issues of the Turtles, they had red bandanas. And I'll tell you more about the evolution of those later on. You guys know Cerebus the Aardvark? You've seen the Cerebus comic books? Dave Sim was one of the early self-publishers. Cerebus started in 1976. And he was a big influence on us because he was really pro-creator rights, create your creations, own your creations. And one of my favorite Turtle comics was Turtles number 8, which was, I introduced this character called Renette. She was a time-traveling sorcerer's apprentice. And so that was Dave Sim. And we actually wrote a 45-page story, and I penciled in all the Cerebus characters, and then Dave went in and fixed them all, redrew them. And so he actually worked on the book, but that's one of our favorite crossover stories. Mirage Studios at this time started to grow a little bit. We now had a much bigger studio. We were doing regular comic books. We started working on some of the toys and some of the animated shows. And so this is I don't know if you can see it clearly enough, but there's an early shot of what the studio looked like. We had about 6 different artists that were helping us with the books. And it was a great place to get work done sometimes. We would all show up and everybody would start working in earnest in the morning, and then around noontime somebody would pull out a Nerf gun or something and there'd be a big gunfight in the studio. But we had a lot of fun. I'd like to show this. This is one of the last pages. A lot of people don't know that most of the Turtle universe was built off the first 11 issues that Peter and I did, plus the 4 one-shots featuring each of the individual turtles. And this is one of the last full-page spreads in issue number 11 that we did. It's cool. Ah, look at those guys. Yeah. Still working on the mustache. Around this time, we were approached by a couple different companies to do more with the Turtles. They said, we think it could be an animated show, we think it could be a toy, and Peter and I were both like, look, it's amazing enough it works as a comic book. We'll never see, I don't see how this would ever be as successful, either of those things, but because we owned and controlled the characters, you know, we started working on the series, and what was fun is that everything that was done with the Turtles back in those days, like, you know, people asked where the different colored bandanas come from, and what happened when we were working on some of the toys and cartoons, the animators were like, well, how do you tell them apart? Well, so like, the weapons, duh, you know? And they said, well, for the cartoon, we'd like to figure out a way to tell them apart a little bit more. So Pete had this idea. He said, well, why don't we do different colored bandanas? And it was pretty specific in their choices. You know, the blue for Leonardo was a very royal, sort of regal color that sort of fit his stature. Orange for Michelangelo, he's silly. He made total sense that he'd have a goofy orange bandana. Raphael, he's our berserker, so he kept the red bandana. And the purple for Donatello was, you know, he's kind of the tech guy, but he uses a bow staff, so he's sort of more of a pacifist, monk-like character. So, but yeah, all the changes that were made on the series were very specific, and Pete and I softened some of the edges, and you knew that because the original older black and white comics, we wrote them for ourselves, so they were a little bit more edgy. And in our cartoon show, we knew we were writing for a much younger audience. So that's Toy Fair. Yay! This is the first Turtle movie. You guys see the first Turtle movie? People always ask me what my favorite version of Turtles are in entertainment, and the first movie by far to me was the perfect film in many ways for us, especially because it was Steve Barron, who was the director, who did this wonderful blend of the edginess and some of the tonality of the black and white comics that we did, and brought in some of the animated stuff. And we had the incredible good fortune to work with Jim Henson, who made the costumes. Pizza, pizza. But these are some of the shots of, look at that Splinter. I mean, it's like, this was just you know, they hadn't even finished building the costume yet, and he looks real. So this was down on the set in Wilmington, North Carolina, when they were shooting the first movie. It was July in North Carolina, so it was about, you know, 104 degrees in the shade and about 105, you know, humidity. So these guys were wearing these 80-pound turtle costumes, doing backflips. All those stunts and all that stuff you saw in the movies were practical. They had these rubber suits on, and there was real actors inside them and doing all that. And this, of course, was one of the highlights. Casey Jones being one of my favorite characters. And Steve Barron actually recreated that scene from the Raphael one-shot with Casey. And Elias Koteas played Casey, and he was so worried that he wasn't doing a good job and he wasn't portraying a character the right way. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but he was the perfect Casey Jones, and always will be. He's like the high water mark. I'd like to share these are some of my favorite early covers. You gotta remember that when Peter and I started the comic book, I think the longest you know, comic story I ever did was 8 pages. The first Turtle story was 40 pages, and I never really painted. I did some coloring. But I'd like to show some of the early colors, some of the early paintings, some of my favorite colors. I literally learned how to paint and draw doing those turtles, and again, I have to blame all of you guys because you gave me such an awesome job to sit there and draw in my sweats and do turtle stuff. I appreciate that very much. You guys seen the new Nickelodeon show? Like the new Nickelodeon show? This is fantastic. This is we were actually doing one of the promotional. I did a bunch of consulting on the Nickelodeon show. Our friend Cyril Neely is the executive producer. He grew up, this is a kid that grew up, his dad ran a pizza parlor in Philadelphia, so he grew up eating pizza, drawing turtles, dragging his mom to all the Turtles movies and stuff, and now he runs a show, and we couldn't have a better guy. That's Ciro. and it's his fault that the new animated series looks so cool. Casey Jones, I love the new version of Casey Jones. I like some of the stuff that they changed in the Turtles Nickelodeon series, and I don't know if you noticed on Casey Jones on his hockey stick, it's got Eastman, and on one of his pads it has Laird. That's pretty cool. And this is by far the most popular character in all of the Turtles new show. Do you know this character?
Ice Cream Kitty.
Ice Cream Kitty. When we first started, we'd go up and we'd consult and talk to the people at Nickelodeon. They'd say, we want you to do a voice in the show, and we'll come up with something really cool, like a really cool good guy, a really cool bad guy. And we saw a drawing of Ice Cream Kitty, and it was kind of based on in the Michelangelo Christmas one-shot we did. We had Michelangelo found a stray cat named Clunk, and so they had this idea to mutate this cat into Ice Cream Kitty, and I said, that's it, I want to be Ice Cream Kitty. And they're like, no, we'll find something else for you. And I said, no, seriously, I want to be Ice Cream Kitty. I want to be able to at least, I want to be able to wear a shirt that says, I am Ice Cream Kitty. And then I'll make my wife sitting over there going to wear a shirt that says, I'm with Ice Cream Kitty. She hasn't made it yet. We haven't got them done yet. One day. So, but Ice Cream Kitty is awesome. You guys reading new IDW series? So you can see what we're doing now. Thank you so much. I have to tell you this. Working with the incredible Tom Waltz, Bobby's the editor, but Tom's the main writer. With IDW, I've been friends with the people that own the company for years. When they got the license to do the series, they brought me down and showed me what they wanted to do. You know, the tonality of the original black and white comic books, picking and choosing some of the favorite characters from all the different Turtle universes, from the cartoon show, from the movies. I flipped out, and I've been working on the series for now. This August, when issue 50 comes out, I'll be working on the series for 50 issues. And we've already written a good chunk of the next 50 issues, or plotted out the next 50 issues, but I'm having absolutely the time of my life. As much fun in the new series as I did with Peter in the original series back in the day. A lot of people, I like to show, this is an example of how I work when I'm designing a cover. I do this blue pencil, just as a test to sort of get my idea across what I wanted to do, and then I blow it up and I do a finished black and white piece. So this was from the City Fall series, the Dark Leo. This was issue 28, which is the last issue of City Fall, and I had to do a wraparound cover because I couldn't resist including every single, there's April, there's Bebop, there's Rocksteady, there's Shredder, there's, the Turtles, everything. And it's, typical Turtle mayhem. A couple of the graphic novels I did. I've been doing the stuff I've been doing for them. It's some of the longest pieces I've been doing. I did a 60-page graphic novel called Big Trouble in Little Italy, and I think the next one is, this is a really fun one. As I mentioned, Turtles #8, which was one of my favorite Turtle crossovers with Renette, and I got to bring Renette back into a storyline, a Turtles time traveling story. I redesigned the character, who looks amazingly like somebody we know over there, the First Lady of the Turtles, and you'll be seeing more of her as a character that comes. This is a fun work in progress. We're doing a collection later this year of the time traveling story, and this is one of the pieces that is still figuring out where everything goes. You guys know Simon Bisley? He's here, right? You should go find him. Simon Bisley is one of my longtime collaborators. We did a storyline called Body Count, one of the Turtle stories that was complete mental crazy. We did that cover for the 30th anniversary, and then I got to work again with the incredible Peter Laird. We hadn't worked together physically on a piece in about 20 years, 25 years, and so I penciled this piece and Pete inked it, and man, it was just fantastic. This one too, this is the second one we did for the 30th anniversary. And I like this piece because one of the editors at IDW said, I love that, the first picture we put up of the Turtles' original first cover. He said, I love that iconic, Turtles on the rooftop cover, but I always wondered what happened 10 seconds later. And so I said, that's a great idea for a cover. So I penciled this piece, Turtles jumping off the roof, and Peter inked it. And, so these are a couple examples of some new covers around issue 44. Did you guys read issue 44? Nobody wants to run up and hit me or anything, right? So, but these are some of the new covers I've been working on. Like I said, I just finished up to Turtles issue 50. We just finished putting together, have you guys bought any of those oversized collections, the large Turtle collections? This one's going to be all short stories. This is Turtles Ultimate Collection #6, which will be out around San Diego Comic-Con. This is really fun. You guys know who Robert Rodriguez is? You heard of Robert Rodriguez? Love Robert Rodriguez. Local boy. Robert and I have been friends for many years, and he's an amazing artist. I don't know if you knew that. He can really draw and really draw well. And so I pitched an idea to him about a month or so ago. I said, we're coming up on Turtles issue 50. if I pencil a cover, will you ink it? So here's the pencil version, and Robert's going to finish inking it any day now, and you'll see it on Turtles issue 50, so keep your eye out for that. It'll be a lot of fun. So, fans brought us this Casey mask and this turtle mask, and me and Courtney wore them for most of an afternoon. It was really fun. And there's, like goofball, I finally gave up on the mustache and shaved it. So there's a little bit of turtle history for you. Sort of show you some of the things we're working on, some of the fun things we've done. And I think we got enough time for a bunch of questions if you guys have anything you'd like to ask. So you want to, I guess, line up right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If everybody could just form a line orderly at this microphone here, and
Yeah, just form a line.
first come, first serve.
Anything you want to ask, except about turtles. No, I'm kidding. Hi.
Who is your favorite turtle, and which one most relates to you?
Oh, great question. Thank you. You know, it's with the turtles. It's like you'd be choosing a favorite child, so it's hard to pick one I don't love. I love any less than the others. But I've always been kind of partial to Michelangelo for many reasons, because he was the first turtle that was ever drawn. And again, I love them all dearly. But a lot of times when I'm writing a story or want to do something kind of crazy and out of the normal turtle history, I'll choose Raphael as a character because I relate to him quite a bit, and I like that he's kind of our Wolverine character, but he's our berserker, but he's the most unpredictable of the bunch of turtles, and I'll a lot of times team him up with Casey Jones because you put two of them together and they're like two completely goofball brothers that get in all kinds of wacky trouble. So Raphael is one of my favorite to tell stories with, but I love them all. So. Yes, sir.
Hi, huge fan. I just wanted to ask, who's your favorite superhero and why?
My favorite superhero? You know, it's man, I used to read so many comics and so many different kinds of comics growing up. One of my favorite all-time comic books is Commandy, The Last Boy on Earth. One of the first movies I saw when I was a kid. Probably was too young to see it, but it was Planet of the Apes. My sister took me to that, and it changed my world, changed my life. And Jack Kirby's Commandy was a kind of a future exploration of that kind of a world, so I love that. But I always read Daredevil. Daredevil was one of my favorite all-time characters. I read it, you know, many years before Frank Miller came along. In fact, I remember the first issue, you know, issue 158 that he penciled, and they were introducing, you know, a brand new penciler just arrived on the scene, Frank Miller, and then I think, like the rest of us that read that series, was completely blown away by what he did. So, but I'd say put Daredevil, Captain America, big superhero fan. So.
Have you watched the show, the Daredevil show?
Oh man, me and my wife just finished watching the series, and it was just like, you know, Heart Attack City. I thought they did a great job on just about every level. I really can't wait to, you know, it's like, you know, it's one of those shows you finish episode 13 and you're going like, oh, now we have to wait how long for the more, and now. Hi.
How did you come up with cry?
With what?
Cry.
Crane.
Oh, Cry.
Cry.
Oh, Cry. Yes. Oh, that's a great question. No, Cry was something that we came up with in when we got to the City at War series. That we, you know, Shredder's original Foot Clan was based in Japan mainly, and we had been focusing on what he'd been doing, you know, his own with the Foot Clan and that kind of stuff in New York City. And we thought it'd be great to have a sibling of Shredders have grown up and have trained and had taken over and run the Japanese side of the Foot. So it was great to bring her in as a surprise and throw the fans a few curveballs. And but yeah, so she was created as specifically for that series. And we like the character so much, and the fan response has been great. We just, you know, she's around today, and it was great to bring her into the new Nickelodeon animated series and the new Turtle movie. So she'll be around for a long time to come. Thank you.
What are your thoughts on the Michael Bay Ninja Turtle movies?
Oh, when did that come out? That was recent? No, Michael Bay was the producer of that film. Jonathan Liebsman was the director. And I've been actually working with two of the original producers on developing the story for what became the movie that came out last year for about 2 years before. But when Jonathan Eastman came on board, he called me pretty much from day one, and he said, look, I want to make the best turtle movie ever made. I want you to help me guide it along. And we worked very hard for the next 2 years to make what we, within the studio system, I'll say, not pointing the blame at anybody to make the best turtle movie we could. There were some really great parts of the movie. There were some parts that both Jonathan and I wished had been done better, or we thought could have done better. There were some tweaks and changes. I mean, I know a lot of people were very worried about the original look of the Turtles when they first came out, but I don't know if you guys remember, there was Michael Zulli did a series of turtle comic books for us in the about 15 years ago, where he made the Turtles much larger, and he was more of a nature artist, and so they had a very realistic look. And much like Nickelodeon changed some things for their cartoon show, for the movie they said, let's take it in a few steps to the left and go back to this look that was from the Turtles' history. But yeah, there was some fun stuff in there. The elevator scene and some other stuff and other things. I mean, scenes that we really liked. There's some stuff again we would like to have seen done a little bit better. But it was Jonathan's hope that we keep the same heart and soul. We didn't want, the pizza was there, the characters were there. Hopefully that they came across as the same turtles you loved and weren't too far out of bounds. But now we're working on Turtles 2. So thanks. Yes, ma'am.
Why did you make Ice Cream Kitty out of ice cream?
Well, it's like, if you watch, you see some of the other episodes of the Nickelodeon show, and there's some of them are like, even, Sarah would tell me about, remember the pizza zombies? It's like, what the? It's like, he really pushes the limit on some of that stuff. And that was the thing, because he always loved Plunk, from the Michelangelo series, and he said, well, this cat's gonna eat, ice cream that Mikey, spilled on some of Donatello's stuff with mutagen on it. It turns into this full-on ice cream kitty that they have to keep in the freezer. And I'm like, this is just so dumb. I love it. And I love that they keep bringing him back, and he has to carry him around in a little ice chest in the fridge. I love ice cream kitty. Yes, sir.
How did you pick the personalities of each turtle?
Great question. The personalities of the turtles arrived almost naturally in many ways, in the kind of sense they were kind of modeled after, like the kids that I hung around in high school and grade school and through the years, even kids in my neighborhood. There was one kid that was always the leader type. Hey, let's go here. Hey, let's wreck this, or let's do this. That was the leader type. Then you had the one that would always be making jokes at the right time and the wrong time. There was always the kid that you wanted on your side to back you up in case you ever got in a fight or a scuffle or in a tough spot. And then there was always the techno kid that would, the first one on the block to get a, Commodore, video game system, or, got a Casio calculator watch. And so it was a really natural, we wanted 4 different distinct personality types that become sort of an adopted family. They all love each other. They're mutants and they're teenagers. They love each other. They're brothers. They protect each other. And we have the father figure, Splinter. But yeah, it was a really natural selection, and it gives us great elements to tell interesting stories. How the personalities clash and make themselves get along when they need to. Yes, sir.
Hi. I wanted to say that I grew up loving the Turtles, and I really like real turtles too. I actually found a wild turtle in the parking lot of my apartment complex. I had to slam on the brakes and not hit it.
Awesome.
So I picked it up and I drove it and released it in the bayou. Can I show you a picture?
Absolutely. That's awesome. Good for you. I think that is cool as hell. That is so cool. Wow. Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people ask about, where some of the turtles, when Bruce Lee as a turtle is a funny idea as an animal. But my grandmother, where I grew up in Maine, she lived on a lake, and there was an outlet, with a runoff of the lake, and there was always lots of turtles in there, mostly snapping turtles, and we'd go down there and stand as far away as we could with a little stick, and then watch the snapping turtles bite the stick. So yeah, that was part of my childhood. So thanks for sharing that. It's a great story. Thank you for saving the turtle.
Hi. First of all, thanks for making some of the most epic characters ever. Thanks to you, I think me and my brother wrestled always just to do that.
Thank you so much.
And secondly, you said you've done so much with this characters. How do you step back and allow for every company or every producer to kind of put the twist on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle? How do you just step back and allow it?
Well, it's a great question too. It's like, there's two parts to that question, and I remember like two answers to that question rather. Is when we were growing up and I was reading Avengers and Iron Man and Daredevil, or these comics, it always seemed like you'd have one particular writing team working on the series for a year, 8 issues or 12 issues or whatever, and then they'd either kind of burn out or go on to another series, and then have a new writing team, and that new writing creative team would have a slightly different take or a different approach or a different kind of tonality or story that they wanted to tell. So we were kind of used to the idea of seeing other different creative teams work on some of our favorite characters growing up. And then when Peter and I did the comics, like I said, we did the first basically 15, 16 issues, and we had started working on the animated and the cartoon show, and we couldn't draw every issue the way we used to, so we started bringing in help to help get the issues out on time, and occasionally do fill-in issues, and would have somebody do a fill-in issue, and they said, again, there was only so few Turtles issues out, we had a good foundation, and a writer would come in or an artist would come in and say, hey, I thought about taking the Turtles in that direction and trying that with them, and it was all with our approval, and Pete and I would be like, oh, well, that sounds awesome, let's do that. I mean, they saw stuff inside some of our characters that we didn't even realize or didn't even see, and so we really loved that idea. And then when you see things like the animated show, which, like I said, the earlier black and white comics were written for us, but the animated show was written for a much younger audience, and that was by a whole team of writers that wrote specifically animation, and so we worked directly with them. So we loved their handling, and we had two different worlds of Turtles. We had the black and white Turtles, and we had the animated Turtles for a younger audience. And we worked with we did 300 episodes of the cartoon show and worked with lots of different writers that had some great ideas, really great ideas, and some that didn't have such great ideas, but still made funny episodes. And so it's never been a big bother, because most of the people that came in and worked on the stuff wanted to just tell a good Turtle story and keep the heart, soul, and keep the characters within the boundaries. And for most of that stuff in the early days, again, we had complete control over it, so we allowed some of that stuff, all that stuff to happen. And it's so funny today, because you look at like the Nickelodeon animated series and origin for the animated series, and what that is completely different from what we're doing in the IDW comic series, which, the reincarnation and April's character and the different characters we're doing there. And then you look at the movie, which is completely different from the IDW series and the Nickelodeon animated series, but it's still within the Turtle universe. And so I think there's room to flex and move a little bit, so I don't mind them at all, and I don't mind, seeing other people's vision of our characters. Some of it's really exciting.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, thank you.
Certain catchphrases have stuck longer than others, so I was wondering if maybe you could discuss some of
Say that again, please.
catchphrases.
What?
He said certain catchphrases have stuck longer than others.
Catchphrases? Like you're talking like the Turtles Cowabunga or that kind of stuff?
Can you say that again?
The catchphrase Cowabunga, he did it awesome. It's funny that people go like, we actually got sued by, what was his name, Buffalo Bob from the Howdy Doody Show, because back in the early days they used to have a show, the Howdy Doody Show, and then this guy came out and he'd have Clarabelle, the cow, and he'd come out and go, Cowabunga, and that was way before my day. I got Cowabunga from the Annette Funicello, Frank Diabolon beach blanket movies. They'd be like, hey dude, hang ten, or Cowabunga. And then The Simpsons used it, and I think the guy from the Howdy Doody Show sued both us and The Simpsons for stealing Cowabunga. He didn't win, but no, it was kind of funny.
Yes, sir.
Cowabunga, Booyaka Shop. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say first that I think the IDW Ninja Turtle series right now is the best comic that is being published right now, and I'm really happy to hear that it's not going anywhere.
Thank you so much.
And my question is, of all the Turtle series that have been published, since 31 years ago, what would you recommend for some people to go back and read and get into? What are some of your favorites?
That's a great question, and thank you again. What I was so proud about when we started working with IDW is they did the collections of the original series that Peter and I did, in this beautiful hardcover collection. And what was even more fun is that we got to go back in and do all these annotations where it talks about what we were thinking about at the time, and we were doing this particular part of the story or remembrances of goofy stuff that was going on at that time. So I think if depending on the age of the person, I think those IDW hardcover collections are a great place to see where the Turtles' roots are. You know, and if it's an older fan, I think the IDW series, you know, Change is Constant, which is the first part of the trilogy, the reinvention. If you're looking just at the comic books, I think there's some great material in there of how the Turtle universe has evolved. But the younger stuff, I mean, IDW does an animated version of the Turtles cartoon show. And that's pretty fun. So yeah, depending on the age, I think you can find something for everybody out there. Thank you for the question. Uh-oh, see, you broke it.
How did you come up with the idea of Shredder?
Oh my God, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. Peter's wife is an amazing cook, and when we lived in Dover, New Hampshire, the place we showed you the picture where the turtles were born, while Pete and I were working on the story, Jeanine would cook dinner, and then Pete and I would do the dishes. So one night Peter was washing the dishes, and I was drying them. And you ever see those metal cheese graters? It's kind of like a triangular thing with a little handle on the top. I was drying it, and I literally slid my hand to dry the inside, and I sort of put it on, and it had all those, you know, shredding blades on it. And I'm like, dude, could you imagine if there was a bad guy that had these? He would literally shred your skin off. We could call him the grater or something. And he was like, oh, that's awesome, but how about the shredder? And I'm like, the shredder. So the shredder came from doing dishes. So remember, kids, help you folks do the dishes, and who knows what will happen.
All right, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You're always hearing people doing crossovers, like superheroes versus superheroes. If the Turtles were to cross over to fight someone, who would you like to see them fight? Like Captain America, or even a different villain? Who would you like to see them cross over?
Oh man, you know, it's I know it'll never happen in a million years, but I don't know if you guys noticed, if you read Daredevil and you read the Turtles' origin, you know that there might be a few similarities. For example, if you don't know, is you know, the Turtles' origin, you know, Matt Murdock's origin is, you know, he saves this blind man walking in front of a truck that just happens to be carrying radioactive waste, and young Matt Murdock saves him, and gets hit near the eyes with this canister carrying radioactive waste. Well, they never said what happened to the canister. So in the Turtles' origin, Pete and I had the canister continue bouncing down the street, and it sort of hit this poor kid who was holding a glass terrarium with 4 turtles in it, precariously close to a sewer opening that was open. It smashed that, and the canister, which cracked and it landed in the sewers. So it's part of Daredevil's origin again. The Turtles' origin, and even Daredevil's mentor, like they even used to great effect in the new Netflix series, was a character named Stick. We have Splinter. And then in Frank Miller's Daredevil series, they had the Hand, which was the evil ninja clan, and we have the Foot. So I think a Daredevil crossover would be a real blast. Like I said, I don't think it'll ever happen, but that would be my favorite.
Do you think Daredevil could take out all 4 turtles?
Probably. You know, I'm such a huge Daredevil fan. Probably let him beat him up a little bit.
Awesome. Okay. Next.
Yes, sir.
What inspired you to make your characters fighting turtles?
Well, you know, it's absurd. It's such a crazy idea. Again, it was you know, I grew up watching Bruce Lee movies and even the David Carradine Kung Fu TV series and those kind of things. And so when, you know, I made that joke to myself one night and did that first drawing and showed it to Pete, you know, I said, you know, if Bruce Lee was an animal, what would be the stupidest animal you could imagine? And a turtle naturally came to mind because it just was so improbable and so silly. And then, you know, of course, they got to be martial artists that eat pizza, which back in those days I worked at a pizza place, so I was eating a lot of it. Actually, I still do now. So.
Actually, my next question was, what is your favorite pizza?
My favorite pizza, actually, I'll go to is recently, and actually it's Courtney, my wife's father's fault. He would get a Hawaiian style, you know, ham, pineapple, and put jalapenos on it. So that's like my favorite one. We've been eating that pretty regularly for the last couple of years. So.
I've been told we have 10 minutes left, but if we don't get to your question, we're doing the same panel tomorrow at 2:30, and I'm pretty sure it's in the same room, so come back tomorrow if you didn't get your question answered. And Chloe Bennett from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is next. So I've been informed you can stay in the room. So, all right, let's continue.
You got the good seats.
Yeah,
This should be great. This should be a great panel. I love that series.
I actually
Yes,
got a
sir.
two-part. At any point in the comic series, will we expect to see Usagi and Cerebus team up with the Turtles again? And would we expect to see Old Hob show up in the TV series or movies?
Great question, actually. Usagi Yojimbo was one of my all-time favorite comic characters back in the early days when Pete and I were doing conventions. Because they were like, they'd always sit us next to Stan and Bob Bird and Flaming Carrot, and like, they're those guys that do that silly animal comics and that weird stuff. Let's put them together. But we became such great fans of Stan. He's such an incredible guy. So we had a blast doing all those crossovers and even bringing him into the toy line and the cartoon show. We've been working to try to make that happen. It just, all the pieces haven't come together. But I'd love to do a Usagi crossover. Dave Sim, I don't know. I talk to Dave every once in a while. It'd be fun to do, and I think he might be up for it. But that's still probably a little bit further away. And Old Hob has just been, that was a creation of Tom Waltz as one of the characters, and he's one of my favorites in the new series, so we got to definitely do more with him.
Yeah, I thought that was actually supposed to be Ice Cream Kid, but I kind of wanted to be out.
Like, Old Hob's and Ice Cream Kitty can team up or something.
That'd be cool.
Actually, they have Old Hob turn into a really huge Ice Cream Kitty.
Yeah.
Guacamole Kitty.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So the Turtles inspired a lot through like the late 80s, like the mid 90s, and I know there's a lot of cartoons that kind of had like the same theme of like a mutant animal, like, I don't know, Biker Mice from Mars, where it's like the same kind of thing. It's like an animal likes junk food. Like, any thoughts on that?
Well, it's funny, when we did the original black and white comic, it was considered such a success because it worked. I mean, it worked in the numbers. I think by issue 3 we went from 3,000 copies in the first issue to I think 35, 40,000 copies by the time we get to issue 4. And most people, aspiring artists that were trying to break into the business, said, well, if those goofballs can do it, we can do it too. And so back in they called it the black and white boom and bust. It was like 85, 86. I think we counted 21 adjective, noun titles. It was adolescent radioactive black belt, hamsters, mildly microwave prepubescent gophers, geriatric gerbils, kung fu kangaroos. Even Marvel advertised doing adult thermonuclear samurai elephants. I don't think they ever put the series out.
No, I remember that ad.
You remember that ad?
Yeah.
So we took it as our book was a parody of all the things we liked about comic books, and we achieved the dream of drawing comic books. And we felt that a lot of people that were doing the same thing just were trying to follow their dream too and build the thing. So we were very flattered. But Biker Mice from Mars, that was retarded.
It wasn't as bad as Street Sharks.
What's that?
Street Sharks.
Street Sharks, yeah. It was so weird. There's another one called Cowboys of Blue Mesa.
That one was awesome because they had guns that shot like.
But it was cows as cowboys that rode horses.
Right.
I thought it was actually kind of funny.
No, it was really weird and cool. Wolverine.
Hi, me again. My question is, I know in the Image run of Ninja Turtles, they did a lot of weird stuff, like they made Raphael Shredder and they made Donatello Cyborg. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, in the Image series?
Yeah.
I totally dug that series. In fact, it was a real bummer that that series was originally scheduled to go to 26 issues, and I think they stopped or was canceled after issue 23. And me and everybody at IDW have been working to see if we can try to complete that series, not only finish those last bunch of issues, but maybe go back in and recolor it and re-release them, because I thought it was a really fun series. Both Frank and Gary, the writer and the artist, did a fantastic job. So hopefully we can see that brought back one day and finish in color. I think this could be it, our last one. We should be right on time, right? Awesome.
Hi. Thanks for coming. Big fan. And if you're looking for pizza, try Frank's Pizza. Here in downtown, it's really good. But
thank you.
My question was Krang, Dimension X, the Rock Soldiers. What brought that about? What inspired those characters?
There was, Krang was when we did. We were working on the origin of the U's, which is funny because at end remember when Michael Bay said the turtles going to be aliens? It was actually, the funny thing was he he sort of misquoted what the intent was, which was it was discovery of the origin of the ooze was always been of alien nature. These Ultrons that got stuck on Earth, and they had those exoskeletons and these little Krang guys that lived inside of them. That goes back to Turtles issue 4. Actually, their first appearance was the end of issue 3 and issue 4. And we just love, that most people, the animators and the other people that saw them said, these are just wild. And so we were looking for a good bad guy that was one above Shredder. We sort of condensed the Krang or the Ultrons all into one evil bad guy, Krang, and who ruled Dimension X and all that stuff. So that's how he evolved as a character. I love how they do them, and especially the new Nickelodeon animated series. They're such goofballs, and they're all dressed as Agent Smith, sort of the Norman-looking characters. So, Krang's. I think he's going to be around for a good time to come, and he's going to be in the new movie. You guys see that? Hear that? Yeah. So we got Bebop, Rocksteady, Krang, and there's a bunch of other surprises you're going to see there. But hey, listen, this has been an absolute blast. This is our first day here at the show here in Houston, and you guys have made it an incredible, wonderful, special day. We appreciate you coming out to this panel. We appreciate you standing in those lines to come say hi and hang out with me for a little bit. And we can't wait to do it again tomorrow. Like you said, the panel's at 2:30 tomorrow.
Yeah, 2:30 this room. If you think of a question tonight that you should have asked today, you still have time.
Yeah, tomorrow's all, I won't answer any turtle questions. It's all everything, but I'm kidding, of course. No kidding. No, and we're going to take just a 5-minute break, and we're going to be back at the table signing until from 5 to 7. So if you guys want to come by and get something signed, please do. Thank you so much, Houston. You guys have been awesome. And I'll see you later on.
Huh?